Hello there, and welcome to another BoBeats video. And today we're actually going to do something quite exciting. We are going to take a first look at a really interesting sequencer, MIDI controller, audio patch bay, and audio routing matrix. And before we unbox it, we first need to have a little sip of the coffee. So this sequencer is from a really small company. I think it's called RELIQ or RELIQ Instruments. I first saw the controller at Super Booth. Oh, and we got something. I'm not joking when I say that all my best clothes are like merch. I mean, well packaged. There wasn't anything more in that, I hope. And here we have it. Man, this is crazy. I mean, just look at this thing. The size of it is ridiculous. And here we have the routing matrix. And the routing matrix is connected with USB to the main unit. In terms of packaging, I would give it an S tier. This was really well packaged. And here's the back of the unit. So we have the module USB-C, we have USB host, USB MIDI port, we have 1 MIDI in and 3 MIDI outs, as well as the power. I know people often complain that sequencers and other groove boxes have really small screens, but just look at this screen here. It is huge. The RELIQ is a 16-track MIDI sequencer. You have a clips mode, you have keys mode, LFO, envelope per track, a DAW mode, and a song mode. You also have something fairly unique, which is an audio routing matrix, which uses the breakout box. This can be used, for example, to send to various effects. And there's just a lot to like here. So let's start with an overview of what the RELIQ is. And here's a first little setup that I got going. Have the Syntact, key step, and the new form from Sequential. And yeah, I was so amazed by the RELIQ that the hair just kind of blew off. You use these buttons here to access the different main functions. The matrix page lets you connect inputs like this to outputs. So we got inputs over here on this row and outputs here. There are also CV and gate signals. And you can also use the grid to make these connections. As you can see, I've connected 3 inputs here to 3 outputs, but you can connect multiple inputs to the same outputs if you want to. And using the bottom row here, you can also save different setups. So if we just make a few connections, you can see here, we're now changing the setup here. The next page is the mix page. And here you can attenuate the input signals and output signals, like so. So if we just put everything up here and we turn down input number 1, we're just listening to the Syntact. We can turn down the level and we can turn up here. The next page is where it gets interesting. It's the sequencer page. And when we press it, we get this sort of top-down overview of all the tracks. 16 tracks here, you can select them like so, but in this view you don't have to select anything, you can just press wherever you want to put down steps. So if I just clear this here, you hold down undo and you press the tracks here, put down a kick. You can also preview a sound by just holding down a step and pressing play. If you press a track, you can see we have MIDI in and MIDI out settings here per track. And this is how I use the key step, because I have this connected to the USB host. So for track number 12, where I have a bass, I have connected the Arturia here. So by pressing record on 12, I'm arming the track, and then I just press record and play. And it auto quantizes depending on what you have set up in the keys view. Currently you can only quantize to like 1/16, 1/8, 1/32 or none. But in the future I hope that they will have a percentage-based quantization. So when you're working on the sequencer's macro view, it's very quick to make a beat. You can also make per step adjustments. You can also select a track, click here to get into the track view. So this lets you see one track where you can make a lot of different changes to the sound. For example, changes to the pitch like this, so you're seeing it like a piano roll. But we'll get into this later in the video when we deep dive into the sequencer. So for now, we're going back into the macro mode. Here we have some important controls. For example, you can set the number of steps per track. So you can have, for example, the hi-hat be only 24 steps. And you can also increase it beyond the 32 steps by adding sheets. So it's basically like pages in Electron devices, and you can have a lot of them, so you can make really long sequences. And in this mode, we can of course lengthen a step like so. We can make some per step adjustments, like for example, the pitch. We can also do probability changes, for example, if we don't want the claps to always play. If we mute everything else, on the hi-hat track, you can see that we've set it so that the direction is randomized. So it's randomly playing back steps. But you can set it to forwards, backwards, and forward, backwards again. You can also change the speed, playback speed of a track. There's also pitch offset, velocity offset, duration offset, and probability offset. And the probability offset I really like, because it's basically a quick way of adding probability to the steps without actually having to program them per step. So we have a little melody going on here, and now we can just introduce some probability offset. And we can change the direction to random. Copy a few steps as well. Go in here and change the pitch. Now clips should be fairly familiar to anybody who's used, well, a modern DAW. You have your tracks, you have your clips, and then you have slots for different clips here. So using Shift and these buttons here, you can select the entire row of clips. For example, what I have here is kind of an intro. And just go over here to what is like a chorus. And you can, of course, mix and match the clips here as you want. So we can take the lead from the intro and drums from the chorus. And whenever we want, we can just press here. And it will just play after the first clip here is done. Next mode here is keys. So from here we can play and record into the sequencer. I do not think that it currently supports any sort of like polyphonic aftertouch or something like that, and maybe in the future it could. But let's move on. We have LFOs and envelopes. So you have one LFO per track and one envelope per track, and they can be set up, if we take a look here, they can be set up to pitch, velocity, probability, and CC at the moment. This might be changed in the future with more destinations, and for the envelope, it's currently only CC assignable. So how does this work? Well, if we press LFO here, track number 1 here, we have these slots here, and these ones I've populated with 3 different LFOs. So 1 LFO per track, but you can save different settings. So let's listen without any modulation, and the modulation is set up to the filter cutoff. Let's turn up the cutoff and use an envelope. Let's keep the envelope on, go to LFO and engage it. This is actually a bit more useful than you might first think, because some synths actually don't have, for example, a full envelope to control, say, the filter. I don't think like the monologue, for example, has that, but it is CC controllable, so you can use the envelope here on the sequencer instead to control the filter on the monologue. And the next mode is the DAW mode. I'm not gonna get into that in today's video. I don't really use a hardware sequencer like this with a DAW, but you can connect it, I think, to Ableton and Bitwig. And then we have the song mode. More about the song mode later. Next up, I want to dive a little deeper into the sequencer because there's a lot of interesting things going on here. So by clicking any of these encoders, we get into this secondary view. So if the other view, this view here is like the overview, the top-down view of all the tracks, this one is a per track view, and we can use the encoder, or rather the joystick here, because it's a joystick. You can actually click it to the side and up and down. You use this to see the notes, and then there are different views. So if we're in velocity, we're seeing the velocity here per step. Duration lets us set the duration, and we can do that by just using any of these encoders, because suddenly the encoders refer to each step. So we use the encoder here, and if we change this step here to a different pitch, you can more easily see that we're changing the duration. Probability changes probability per step. You can see it's 100% on the screen, and we change it like so, and it's very visually represented here on the screen. The screen is actually quite pleasant, and it's not too bright, but even with these bright lights, I can see what's going on. Trigger lets us change, again, with the knobs here, or encoders, lets us change the trigger. So it triggers 1 in 2, basically meaning it triggers 1 every 2 times the pattern is looped. Yeah, I'm not the best at explaining that. And if we go to micro time, we use the knobs here to change the timing here of the steps per step. So we're just going to change up the pitch like so. But we're also going to use the zoom functionality, and this is important. So press the joystick upwards, and now instead of seeing all of the 16 steps, we're seeing 32 steps, but in 2 different sheets or pages. So here we use the joystick again to move between steps 1 to 16, 17 to 32. This can be a little confusing. It's 16 steps, but with a resolution of 32. And now we can add some additional steps here. Something like this. And as you can see, this is also important. When the sequencer is running, you can see that it jumps between the steps, it follows, but if I press the encoder here, we are staying on the selected sheet. adding these micro steps is so far, I think, the only way of doing like small rolls for drums. And this is something that I hope that they add in the future, the ability just to hold down a step and add a roll or fill to that step. We can also change velocity here a little bit per step. We can do like so. Let's go back to the other sheet. So it's pretty hands-on, pretty easy. We can also change actually the probability for a couple of the steps, so it doesn't necessarily trigger all of the time. And we can adjust the micro timing as well, just moving a few steps here. Now on track number 1, I'm gonna increase to 4 sheets. If I haven't mentioned it already, sheets are like pages on Electron devices. You can have a ton of these sheets, you can see here. So you can make really long sequences. So we're gonna press pitch here, and now we see the note view. That's kind of nice, like starting there. So I have the 2 notes. I want them to actually have a longer duration. So I just hold down the step, and then I can just turn it to 2 sheets. So we have these 2 chords here just moving, and now we go to effects, and I'm gonna add in an arpeggiator. And the arpeggiator has different modes, all the things you might want, like random, for example, and we have different rates. And in the effect screen, we have 4 slots. So we have an arpeggiator here. You can also add randomizer, quantizer, groove. So let's add groove to the mix. You can apply different types of grooves, and you can affect the time and velocity, and also humanize a bit. Which I think is kind of nice. Just adding a bit of humanization to the entire track, and it's so nice that it works with the sequencer, or sorry, the arpeggiator as well. And now we're gonna bring in some effects. So we'll go back here to Matrix, and we have a couple of effects here set up. We have the Bastille time, we have the mood here, and now I'm just gonna send the synth to the mood, if I remember which it is. You can actually name these, but I'm a little lazy, so I haven't done that. So I'm sending sound from input number 1 here to output 14, going into the mood. It's just a mono signal, then coming back as stereo on 12 and 13. And I routed them back into these outs. And again, you can name them, you can group them, you can do a lot of things here to make it a little bit more accessible. But we ain't got time for that. Can also try and run it through the time. So again, we press here, and then we figure out which one of these connections. I think it's number 11. I really should have named them. And then it's coming back in again here at 9. We're sending it to the master that I've just set up here on the device, a master output that is running through this compression pedal. Let's see if we can add in a bass from the Syntact. So something like this maybe. One of the things that is really just fast, you can see me moving around here. I see the notes very clearly. I can also see which note it is, note value, and we can just try and, I don't know, spice it up a bit. I mean, that works. And we can just change the micro timing a bit per step very quickly. So for the bass line, I'm also feeling a different clip. So the bass line is, if I'm not mistaken, on track number 7, go to clip, track number 7. We can just copy this and paste it. So now we made some changes. I'm gonna create a little loop here. So I'm gonna do a follow-up motion. It's gonna play the next clip, and this one is gonna play the previous clip. And we're gonna do a variation for the snares as well. We make some micro timing adjustments, and we also make some velocity changes here. so that it rises in intensity. And then we go back to clip, and then we select the first clip, and we say play the next clip, but we also want to loop it. We can loop it 3 times and then play this one, the second one time. So I think this will work. Okay, nice. So we made a little fill there that just came in every 4th time that the snare loop loops. Okay, that's pretty neat. Next up, we're going to take a look at automation recording. This is actually super well done on this device. So we're on channel number 1, press here, press automation, and then we have up to 8 lanes of automation per track. And these can be recorded in 2. And just like on the other pages, you use the joystick here to move between the different sheets here, so you can see all of the steps and automations. And if you want to change something, you can just go in here, change the curve. You can also zoom in to get higher resolution. And if you want to, you can very quickly just record some more automation. And that ends up on lane number 2. So that's resonance. And what's really cool is that we can, now this is probably gonna mess everything up, but we can just hit record and start messing around with different things. And as long as there is an empty lane, it would record onto that empty lane. So you can just keep recording. I mean, it's not beautiful, but it gives you an idea of how powerful this is, and this is per track. Let's talk song mode and matrix sequencer. So first up, the song mode here. It's a quite basic one. You have these blocks here that you use to create snapshots of whatever is going on here in the clips. So for example, if we have these clips here as the intro, we go to song and take snapshot. Then we go to the second block and we go to clips, and let's take another snapshot here. So let's go back here, snapshot. And now we just have to decide how many bars we want each block to play. And you can also set the BPM per block, which is quite interesting. So let's turn the song mode on, and now we can just start playing. And as you can see, the clips are changing, and now it should change to these clips. And with the song mode, you can also tie in DAW into this, but it's not something that I've used a lot. Now let's deactivate the song mode and go back here to the sequencer, because there is actually Shift 16 here, a matrix sequencer. So now we can put down steps down here, and we can select which of the audio routings we want to be active. So at the moment we have audio routing here. It's just this audio routing. But if we wanted to, we could create a second audio routing, or we could just copy the first one here. For example, we could take away all of the effects that we have going on. So over in the matrix sequencer, we can actually slow down the speed of the matrix sequencer and put a little lock here, lock it to audio routing number 2. You hear how there's no effects. So we basically sequence changes here to the routings. You can of course create different matrix sequencer clips to use in various parts of your song. But I'm gonna be honest, it's not a feature that I've used a whole lot. It's just not a big selling point for me. I like to use the matrix here as kind of a mixer to set the levels, to send levels to effects and so on. I haven't really found like a good use for the matrix sequencing, but it's interesting and it's cool that it's there, and I'm sure that some of you might use that for something really interesting. So what do I actually think about the RELIQ? Well, let me tell you about my relationship to it over time. When I first saw it at Superboot, it was love at first sight. I thought it looked amazing, like, wow, this is so cool. Then when I got it here into the studio, I was like, is it really worth the money? But the more I started using it, the more I really liked it. Now, it's not a totally finished product, in my opinion. There are still functions that it's missing. For example, it doesn't have like a drum track mode. So if we look here on the sequencer, we have steps and Euclidean. Those are the two modes. Now, I want a per track drum mode where one track can have multiple monophonic drum tracks, because that way, for example, if you use an effect like a Midi effect with humanization, you don't have to apply it to all the drum tracks. And sometimes it feels like a waste using a full track, which is polyphonic, 8-note polyphony. So it feels like a waste using it for a drum kit, for example. But I do think that this is in the works. There are also still some bugs. For example, in the sequencer, you have this ability to set the speed of a track, and certain speed settings are bugged currently, and that's a little annoying, but they are working on it. I have sent a lot of feedback to RELIQ, and they've been really cool about it, and they seem to be listening, so I really hope that they nail the firmware, because if they do, I think that this could be one of the absolutely best sequencers out there. It just needs a little bit more. More track types, more MIDI effects, for example, the ability to add a fill when you hold down a step. That's really important. And yeah, I think that they do have a bright future ahead of them if they put in the work. Another thing that is missing is templates, just being able to, for example, load up the form and the CC values for the form inside of this device could be really nice. There's a small bug with the random setting on the arpeggiator, but I know that RELIQ are working on fixing that. And in terms of other wishes that I have for it, I think it would be interesting to like toy with the idea of like a 64-note resolution with the zoom here. So when you are zooming into here, you should be able to like zoom another level to 64 note resolution. Maybe that's pushing it a bit too far. Maybe it's something to think about. We need non-destructive, percentage-based quantization that you can apply after you record. That's really important. Drum tracks, I mentioned that. We need some more generative functions, just the ability to generate like drum grooves and melodies and stuff on it, because generative functionality on hardware is like really important because you want to get started fast. And here's another totally crazy idea for the future of the RELIQ sequencer. It would be really cool if you could actually change the breakout box from this Audio CV gate one to just a full rack-mounted one with big inputs, the big TRS inputs, and just have that for audio. So maybe like a 32 input-output patch bay. I think that that could be really cool, like having this rack-mounted 32 input-output patch bay, and you could connect all of your gear and just use the RELIQ to assign everything and like send the audio wherever you want. That could be really cool. I would also like some sort of page where you could use the grid and the top encoders here to control external gear. So you could use it more like a traditional MIDI controller. So you could use the knobs here to control various CC messages, and then use perhaps the grid here for levels like faders or something like that. I think it could work really well. Now lastly, should you buy this? Well, if you buy it, just know that it's still a work in progress. What's on here works pretty well. It's a fun device, has some very unique features with the breakout box. If you don't see yourself using the Matrix at all, then I would strongly recommend just looking at other sequencers as well to make sure that this is the right one, because it is very expensive. And the Oxy One Mark II, for example, or the Hapax, for example, are also very good options. But I went from being super excited about this to being a little bit more skeptical to then be super excited again about it. So for me, it's definitely something that you should consider, at least look at it and see if the functionality is something you need. If you like the size can be both something really positive and negative depending on your setup. I think that the big screen is a huge selling point. It's really nice, it's very visual. If you, for example, look at the track here, you can very clearly see what is going on here with notes and everything. So overall, very happy with it. So I think that if RELIQ keeps developing this, it has a bright future ahead of it.